to day 2 of the Pivot Conference. How are you feeling this morning? How are you feeling? All right, that is better than I am feeling. But that's why they make Advil. So, we are going to have an exciting day today. Yesterday was fantastic. For those who stuck around for the Skins, oh my gosh, did they rock. Did they rock. Right after they left the stage here last night, they went to write music for their new album. So that is how awesome they are. Today, we're not going to mess around. We're just going to jump in. This morning, we're going to kick off with a conversation around innovation. And innovation to me is something that is incredibly important, not just to our economy, not just to what's next. It's actually important for our philosophy. Yesterday you heard a lot about technology, you heard a lot about social science, but what I believe innovation can do for us is change how we think, change our perspective, and also change our approach. When we leave this conference, we actually have work to do. We have to break our confines. We have to redefine what the whole box is so we know what we can think outside of. And our first guest this morning is someone who has proven time and time again that if you change your perspective, if you have intent to do something better than you did yesterday, then you can actually do it, right? There's this whole concept of be, do, get, right? Figure out what it is that you want to be, do the things that eventually get what it is that you set out to accomplish or what you set out to do. So without further ado, let's get this day started. I need, though, a wonderful round of applause, a warm welcome for our first guest, Kevin Lee, CEO of Soul Republic. Have a seat, have a seat. All right, so before we jump in, I just have to share with the audience, Todd, if I could get that image, if you will, of that cable that was severed. Yesterday, our internet went out, and it's important that we all understand that it's not Pivot's fault. There's an image of we had them send out 17th and 5th a cable that was completely severed. So that's actually why everybody went out. And later today, we have a guest from Mashable. You might know him. His name is Pete Cashmore. And we had conversations limited between both of us because they were also affected by the same cable. So that's just how we want to start the day, by just pointing blame to someone else. Now, all right. So before we get into our conversation, Kevin, why don't you just tell us quickly about Soul Republic. What is Soul Republic? And then we'll jump into the questions.
Okay. Well, Soul Republic is a new audio electronic company. We started out with headphones. I co-founded it with a couple of good friends of mine that's been in the electronics business. And our whole goal overall in Soul Republic is to make good sound and personal audio more accessible in price and brand and a few other things.
I'm also a customer of Soul Republic, by the way, because he is wearing the exact headphones that I have. One of the things that I have to thank you for, first of all, is coming all the way from vacation in Mexico to be here with us.
I wasn't supposed to be. Don't tell anybody I was in Mexico.
Oh, sorry. Too late. Now the whole internet knows. All right. So I also know your father, Noel. By the way, his father started a company that you might have heard of called Monster. And you worked with your dad for a bit. But one of the things that I appreciate, kind of going back to the history of sort of who you are and what you've accomplished, is that you're no stranger to innovation. Can you tell me a little bit about sort of the role you played at Monster?
Yeah, first of all, raise your hand. Do you guys know who Monster is by chance? Oh, that's pretty good. Great, okay. If you know a little bit about Monster, you might have known my father, Noel, and he's the head Monster. And what Monster always was my father had this great passion around music and sound, always getting better sound for everybody's music experience. And so he was always this serial entrepreneur, not to grow the business, but to try to do it. So he would his first thing was making better speaker cables to make speakers sound better back in the old days. My role at Monster, because I knew my dad and I shared the same passion, was to always help him do new businesses like that. So get into car audio at the beginning, and then when speaker sales died down, help him build speakers that look good in the home, and then he wanted to do surround sound music. And so my role has always been to do that. And I'd say my last big role around that is when we launched our first headphone line called Beats by Dr. Dre.
Yes. So one of the things that I find fascinating, though, about the evolution of Monster and the role that you played in this is that, see, this is why innovation is really important, because it's very easy to get caught up in technology, right? But what you ended up doing with Monster was making products, even cables, part of a lifestyle, right? It was this form of self-expression. And when you came out with Beats by Dr. Dre, it was almost like a badge. It wasn't just about great audio, but it was something that sort of defined that you said, audio is important to me. You changed the entire industry by the products that you released. So I got to understand, what was it like in an industry that was just completely complacent, where everybody was just making run-of-the-mill headphones, clever marketing, clever audio products, but you guys broke the bar. You shattered sort of everybody's conventions of what you think about this. I mean, how did the market accept that? What did it take to sort of make that mark?
Well, I'd say two things. One, it actually was a complete flip. When we did Beats, it was a complete flip of how we grew the first 35 years of the company, because my father and I grew up trying to figure out how to teach the retail salesperson how to educate the consumer that sound matters for music, with whatever, cables and things like that. But it became so hard for the retail salesperson to have that conversation with the consumer that they even cared about it, that when we did Beats, we said, you know what? We're going to make the headphone that looks really cool, sounds good, but we actually didn't spend the majority of our time marketing the importance of sound for these headphones. We spent the majority of our time taking a page out of fashion marketing and sports marketing, entertainment marketing, and we just market as the coolest thing that you gotta have so that you look cool or you feel cool. And we said good sound would be a Trojan horse instead, and that would be a much faster process than it took us to build the first 15, 20 years of Monster. And the validation around that is that when we first launched Beats and we looked at all the social media conversation around that, people, especially kids, started talking about how cool it was, which is why they bought it, and they started talking about how cool it sounded, and they started talking about sound like it was a brand new technology or something.
But that goes to show you, by the way, innovation doesn't just take technology, right? It takes innovation in how your approach and in your thinking, and by training staff, and this is what I find fascinating about the rise of Beats, by training staff at the retail level, you were able to create a personal connection and engagement. You were able to empower representatives sort of with helping people understand that there was an alternative. Now, today, in hindsight, that kind of looks like what you're supposed to do, but why wasn't that the standard?
Well, why wasn't what the training staff?
Like just for everybody, the whole industry.
Because it's hard and expensive. So it's very expensive to take a salesperson off the floor.
Right.
Retailers have to pay for that time. Nobody really wants to learn things. I mean, consumers and salespeople really don't want to learn all the features and benefits of every single TV and DVD player inside of a store. But that's why when we did the trainings at Monster, it wasn't on features and benefits. It was on why it's good for them, why it's good for the customer, why it's vitally important to the retailer. And then we actually spent more time instilling like a Monster culture, in that.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I really appreciate about this is that you sort of made brick and mortar matter again, right? That personal connection. There's a lot of showrooming going on where people will go and look at a product and then maybe order it somewhere else. But you made that matter. So how important is brick and mortar to, say, your business and the future of your business?
It's really important to us. It's probably the most challenging thing we have in our business right now, because brick and mortar is less and less relevant to electronic consumer. I mean, Amazon truly is killing it. And we need brick and mortar because we don't make Me Too products. We're not the company that comes out, whether it's Monster or Silver Pup, to say we're just going to make another product and price it a little better. We're about getting people to buy products they haven't thought about buying before. So cables in the old days, premium sounding headphones today. And to do that, we really believe they're not going to go online, read a review, have an editor say you should buy a better sounding pair of headphones and go buy it. They got to go, hopefully, into a location, a store, and have a salesperson explain why it's good for them and demonstrate it and demo it.
Yeah, all right. Because that wasn't sort of the end of your rise. Your rise continues. Because after Beats, you had an idea. And that idea was Soul Republic. You'd already killed it in the headphone market. I mean, you created this premium audio market. So what was the vision? What was the inspiration to say, well, I feel like doing it all over again?
Well, it was a couple of things. Remember, I said the passion my dad has around sound and music, and I have the same thing. I'm very much my father's son. I say, apple didn't fall from the tree. The apple's still on the tree. I'm just on a different branch, right? So, right. As soon as we launched Beats, I believe that not everybody, as big as Beats would be, I believe that not everybody's going to buy a pair of Beats. Not everybody can afford $300 headphones. Not everybody will connect with the brand of Beats. So my goal was to look at what everybody else was. I think everybody deserves a good sounding headphones. And that biggest audience for me was the Echo Boomer generation. And if they weren't buying a pair of Beats, look what they were buying. And they were buying $20 cheap earbuds or nothing at all using what came in the box. So I thought that, well, to get these kids to go from $20 or zero up to, say, a $100 headphone, that I think should be the starting price of a good sounding headphone, it couldn't be just about sound. It couldn't just be a cool design. It had to be a company that was hyper-focused around something that kids would emotionally connect to. And so that's why I realized it couldn't be a Beats thing. It couldn't be a Monster thing. My father made many different products. It had to be a brand new company. And it's also a chance for me to do something completely on my own, growing up in the family business. And so that's why I said, Dad, I want to go do a new company, go get all the other kids, but I want to do it on my own. And he said, good idea. You're on your own, though. And you go tell your retailers you're fighting for your own hooks.
All right. So I want to line up a video to show everyone about Soul Republic. But while that video is getting set up, one of the things that I really respect about the company is this approach to the market. I met one of your co-founders, Seth Combs. He was on an episode of Revolution, which is a web series that I shoot. And Seth had said something really interesting. It's this idea that if you can create a lifestyle product, a product that people can emotionally connect to, like you said, you start to find that your customers become your marketing. And he was talking about how you had all of these incredible celebrities who used your product on their own, without being paid, without asking to be paid. And I thought that was fascinating. And he had this quote that I would share with you. It was, of course, business is about taking a product and scaling that product to as many consumers as you can get. And he said, but this wasn't about taking one product and selling it, or selling 1 million products. It was this idea of taking one product and selling it 1 million times. And I thought that was really brilliant. So, guys, if we could get the video set up, let's watch someone that we might recognize here, sort of.
I'm Michael Phelps. This is my soundtrack of life. I remember sitting on the bus in elementary school, listening to those old school, bright yellow Walkman. The first cassette I ever had was Green Day. I think it was Dookie, actually. I had to sneak around it so my mom wouldn't know I had it. And I remember always sat in the back of the bus. We always had our little buds in that we were, I would have one, my friend would have the other one in, and we would listen to it going to school. I think I'm the only person that still uses CDs too. I always make a bunch of mixed CDs that I have in my car, and one will be a country CD, one will be a hip-hop CD, techno and house music. It's usually hip-hop in the morning, and then going to the pool in the afternoon, it's usually something faster. That's when you'll have, like Afrojack or Avicii or Aoki, some of those guys in there, just to sort of give me something to really get woken up and get ready for the afternoon workout. For me, like, music has been a part of my life every step of the way. You know, if you see me on a plane, if you see me getting up to race, I have headphones on at all times. You know, I'm always listening to music. So music has been a part of me every step of the way. It is a soundtrack to your life. It is something that helps me get away, helps me relax, and it really is a part of my life. I'm Michael Phelps. This is my soundtrack of life.
Yes. So never talks about the features or the specs of the headphone, just a soundtrack to life, made it really personal. And that has been a consistent theme for your business. When we were talking the other day, you shared a story of some of the DJs that you were working with. Maybe you could quickly share that story with everybody else.
Yeah, well, so I very much believe in authenticity. I mean, my dad authentically created Monster for, he wanted to make the speakers sound better, right? And so when I said I was going to do Soul Republic, I didn't know that was going to be called Soul Republic at the time. I said, well, authentically, why else besides doing my own thing do I want to do this? And for me, Beats was about sound, right? Hear what all the sound the artist wanted you to hear. And I said, well, as the son of an audiophile, why do I care so much about sound? I realized because I care so much about music and the power of music and how it can motivate you, inspire you, maybe wake you up this morning after a long night last night. And so we wrote this philosophy statement that I think was up earlier, but it basically just talks about music and how powerful it can be. And our goal, working with we have 250 we call savers of sound. Michael's one of them, but they're athletes, they're musicians, they're DJs, and our goal was to connect with them on that same level, because that's why they do it. Now, Michael's not a musician, but he uses music to train, to motivate, to win. Few people know this, but he's very specific. There is a specific song he plays at a certain point in the time code, walking out of the locker room. And so, anybody listen to EDM dance music? Right? Okay. You know what? You raise your hand if you know what the drop is. All right, the drop. Okay, the drop. So the drop is where it's like drops and then it goes stronger. He times it so that right when the drop comes is when he gets to the podium, he pauses it, gets on the podium, and then he dives in. And that's how specific music was to him. So people like Michael and DJs, which really now are, we made innovation bet, I think is what you're referring to, is when we did Beats, it was about hip hop and music artists. And we made a bet that DJs would become the new rock stars. And this is 2 or 3 years ago, and now they have. I think Calvin Harris is one of the highest paid musicians right now, and one of our saviors of sound. And we've engaged with them to help tell that story, and most of them, like you saw Michael do, and Calvin Harris and Deadmau5, they all do the same thing.
Excellent. And if we could get that image back, because the last question that I want to bring up is your philosophy statement. I think one of the things that a lot of businesses miss around innovation is that in order to be innovative, you have to have a culture of innovation, which means you have to sort of support it among your employees. And it starts with the vision. It starts with leadership. And Kevin, I mean, you are that leader of Soul Republic. You were also one of the leaders at Monster. I think you focused on people, humility, being fearless. I am a big admirer of any type of emotional hooks that you can make, not just with customers, but also with employees, right? Because they have to live the lifestyle. Can you just share with us sort of the principles behind that philosophy statement, why it was so important, sort of how you live and breathe that in your company today?
Yeah, well, let me do two things. First, can we get the philosophy statement up on the main screen there? So this is when I started to do the company, Seth was the first person I went to, he was a good friend of mine, and I said, Seth, there's an opportunity to do something really great, not just create a new company, but a company of really great people. And we said the ability to scale the company, the ability to find all the great people and bring them in. But before we decided on our name and our product, we both agreed about this concept of the power of music. And so Seth and I went to the beach in San Francisco, got on our Google Docs so we can work on the same document without talking to each other, put on our favorite playlist, and headphones. Then it was Beats. We wrote this statement. So if it's okay, can I read it to you?
Yeah, please.
We said, "We are music lovers, committed to change the world one listener at a time. We are savers of sound, ready with a world of hollow-sounding headphones and speakers. We believe music has the power to touch you, move you, and inspire you. We believe a good song can help you be happier, run faster, and think clearer. We believe for every great moment, there's a song that goes with it. We believe this is the soundtrack of your life. We believe musicians are modern-day storytellers. The songs unite a nation, ignite a revolution, and move mankind. Their songs deserve respect. Their music deserves great sound. We believe you don't just hear music, you feel it, and if it sounds better, it feels better. We're committed to incredible music experiences for everyone. While today it means building great-sounding headphones, our future will take us far beyond." And so that was the first thing we did, and then the second thing was,
Thank you.
And then we said, let's go name our company, and we had some really bad names. Someday me and Seth are gonna make t-shirts that because we had Beats, so we said, we're gonna call ourselves Bumps. That wasn't gonna work. And then somebody said, well, we kept on talking about music as the soundtrack of our lives. Let's just name the company at that concept. That's why it's Soul Republic as an acronym for Soundtrack of Life.
I love that. I love that. All right. So before I let you go, look, every business has business values, and the good ones have personal values. You had shared with me that the personal values ranked higher than the business values. Can you just kind of wrap us up with why?
Yeah, well, the 6 values are good people, humility, fearless, on brand, strategic, and smart business. The last 3 are the business ones, and we care lot less about those. It's the first 2 that I care a lot about, and back to that conversation with Seth, which is good people. I don't know if it'll work, but I had this thesis that said, well, the strategy of the company won't be typical business strategies. It will be find good people and make sure none of us have egos no matter how successful we get. So I couldn't say no ego in a value. That's not very good. It's like positives. I said, okay, humility. But it was so important to us, and we mean not like good people like talented, experienced, knowledgeable, connected. We mean like moral compass and character. You've met Seth. He's the most incredible individual I've ever met. And it has guided us. So we've had people on our team we had a director of a major fashion brand be our director, and he performed. He engaged and signed on 100 savers of sounds for us before we even launched the company. And that was great, but I got the sense that he wasn't the greatest, he wasn't a bad person, but wasn't the greatest person. And so we made the hard decision to stick to our values, and we transitioned out. And since then, we've got a lot more engagement with our savers as an example. But the same thing when it comes to outside the company. So we actually choose partners, large brands or small brands, or talent and influencers, whether they're a good person or not. We walked away from some of the biggest influencers there because we didn't get sense they weren't a great person or the team wasn't a great person. I think it's led us well so far.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, round of applause for Kevin Lee. Kevin, thank you so much. What a great way to kick off the day.